Watch this.
It's Friday. You know what that means? We made it through the week. Here's what's ahead for you on the Friday edition of the 208. A debate about renouncing racism in the Idaho Senate is generating quite the conversation. The question, should Idaho lawmakers rush to denounce a racist incident in North Idaho? Some legislators say they needed more time. The use of pronouns is certainly a hot topic among some. Among others, they simply don't care. But Idaho lawmakers do, and they advanced a proposed law that would touch on who should use what pronoun and how. We're taking a look back at a major political story in Boise. 20 years ago on this day, do you remember? A statue of the Ten Commandments became a center point of a religious battle on public property. Frankly, it was an embarrassing headline to share. The University of Utah women's basketball team says that they faced a racist incident while staying in North Idaho for the NCAA tournament. The Utah Utes, they played Gonzaga last weekend in Spokane. And Utah coach Lynn Roberts told the national media after their weekend games about an incident in North Idaho. A pickup truck driving past the team. A person inside berated the team with offensive, racially fueled language, and the team says that they were targeted with the N-word directly. And the coach says that it created concerns about their safety. She called it shocking. This is video of Coeur d'Alene where it reportedly happened. And fact-finding continues according to investigators, but did a few apples really spoil the Idaho image again? Up for you to decide. But the Idaho Senate, lawmakers wanted to send a strong message to condemn the reported incident and denounce racism in general. Resolution quickly drafted and brought to the Senate floor. It wasn't a quick debate with unanimous yes, though. Some lawmakers said they didn't want to react to something so fresh or rush into anything. Others called that out.
I'm not really familiar about. I can't really find a lot of information about what has transpired and if this is the best way to go about talking about this.
I hope I could be wrong. I don't know, but I haven't seen any actual evidence of this happening.
I am way out of my comfort zone voting on something I know nothing about. It could have been handled with a press release. It could have been handled with a joint letter signed by a variety of other senators who are more up to speed on it. But I think it's completely inappropriate.
One of the things we're called to do here in the legislature is to quickly digest information. This is a resolution, a Senate resolution. I think the words are simple. I think the message is clear, and I think it is timely.
I don't know how much time it takes people to decide if you are against racism, racial slurs, racial intimidation, and hatred.
And let us send that message that we will continue to fight against this with all our hearts, with all our minds, and all together.
So that resolution denouncing racism in all forms, it passed with only no vote. As you heard, though, there is plenty of concerns. This morning, I sat down with Lieutenant Governor Scott Bedke for our Viewpoint taping. It airs on Sunday. Lieutenant Governor presides over the Senate, so the Lieutenant Governor watched that all unfold live. And I wanted to share his perspective of that debate, one that many thought would be quick.
The fact that we debated it at all is searching for the word is not good.
Yeah.
And it troubled me presiding over that debate, and I could not believe that this is the easiest vote they'll make all year.
Yeah.
And yet we strained over it. Some did anyway.
You can watch our full interview with the Lieutenant Governor this Sunday morning on Viewpoint, 9 a.m. right here on News Channel 7. Sticking with the politics, identity is a major part of every person on the planet. The lens of that, though, greatly varies depending on your beliefs, your values, and your upbringing. Talking about pronouns, he, she, they, you know the variety. Lawmakers, though, are now one vote away from sending a proposed law about using pronouns to Governor Little. House Bill 538 prohibits any government entities in Idaho from forcing any public employee to use preferred personal titles or pronouns that do not match with the biological sex of the individual seeking to be referred to by such title or pronoun. Statement of purpose from the bill's sponsor, Republican Representative Ted Hill and Senator Chris Trakel, basically says that Idahoans have a First Amendment right to refer to someone by their biological sex, even if it is harassing behavior.
This is simply allowing them to be able to stick with their personal beliefs, their religious beliefs, whatever beliefs they may be, without having other organizations or groups compelling them, enforcing them with punishment to use something that they themselves may find completely wrong.
1 in 3 LGBTQ young people don't believe they're going to live past 35. This is the future we are giving children. So this bill prioritizes the comfort of adults over the well-being and the safety and the future of our children.
Full Idaho Senate will take this up next week, or at least they'll have the opportunity to. And speaking of identity politics, how about some new laws to define male and female in related terms? Same meeting that I referred to earlier, the State Affairs early this morning. They also passed House Bill 421. Legislation defines male and female, and it says that there are only 2 sexes. The committee sponsor asked why he was bringing this, basically said that it needed to have clarification in Idaho law. So we will see next week what happens in the Senate. They will return to work Tuesday, getting an extra Monday to return from the Easter holiday coming up on Sunday. So we thought the legislature could sine die today, but clearly that is not the case with all the new legislation being introduced. But they are moving quickly. We covered 11 other pieces of legislation this week, 6 in the Senate, including special sessions, voting security, don't tread on me license plates, and paid signature gatherers. And we also covered 6 pieces of legislation in the House, including the Idaho Transportation Department budget that failed, parental choice tax credit for schools, and illegal immigration. And we are going to take a look now at where some of that main legislation sits here at the end of the week. On Monday, we talked about 5 pieces of legislation, including House Bill 743, which is the latest attempt at the parental choice tax credit. It puts state money into the hands of Idaho families to help them pay for private homeschool, religious, and other forms of school. The bill creates a refundable tax credit of up to $5,000 and a grant of up to $5,000 for lower income families.
It's an issue that needs resolved. I think this gives us a starting point when we come back next year.
I would say it has been resolved.
House Bill 743 is likely stuck in committee this session, but it does set the stage for next year. Also on Monday, we talked more about House Bill 710, which is the latest bill trying to ban harmful materials in libraries. The bill requires both public and school libraries to have a form available allowing people to request a book be moved to an older section if they think the book contains content that they consider obscene. Back on Monday, the Senate State Affairs Committee voted to send the bill to the Senate floor for amendments. And the amendment says that libraries would have 60 days instead of 30 days to relocate a book after they received the written notice before the concerned party could file a lawsuit. Yesterday, Thursday, those amendments passed. Now the amended House Bill 710 is set to be heard over in the Senate.
This is to protect property owners throughout the state, not just in Boise.
Working people in the city aren't going to be protected anymore.
On Wednesday, Boise Mayor Lauren McLean gave us her thoughts on House Bill 545. The part of the bill she is frustrated with is where it says that property owners don't have to accept federal housing assistance programs or third-party rental assistance. That directly impacts Boise's Section 8 vouchers, which says that landlords can't deny rental applications based on source of income.
Affordability is the most important issue to Idahoans and Boiseans. The legislature, rather than doing the people's work, are targeting people and playing politics on the back of people.
Senate Bill 545 was delivered to the governor's desk Thursday. We'll see if and when he signs it into law. A bill we've talked a lot about this session is officially law. A House Bill 668. It bans public funds for gender-affirming surgeries or medical treatments, things like hormone therapy or puberty blockers. It also states that Idaho Medicaid can't reimburse or provide coverage for that type of gender transition care. The governor signed the bill into law on Wednesday. It'll go into effect on July 1st later this year. On Thursday, we talked about Senate Bill 1450. The bill tries to restructure the University of Idaho's acquisition of the University of Phoenix through a separate non-for-profit entity called 4-3 Education. The Idaho Attorney General's office isn't convinced that's legal, and neither is the Senate because Senate Bill 1450 failed on the Senate floor. The future of the sale appears to be unclear with no legislative remedy in sight right now. House Bill 1445 also failed the Senate Thursday. The bill would have set aside nearly $1.1 million for summer EBT meal programs, a federal program that stemmed from the pandemic. The program would have fed over 100,000 hungry Idaho kids, and Idaho actually already opted out of the summer EBT for this summer. Some senators called it another welfare program, but Don Pierce with Hunger Free America says 107,000 children is not a massive welfare program.
I went to bed and cried because I didn't know how I was supposed to feed my son. And I'm so sorry for them that they're going to continue to go to bed and cry instead of our legislature doing the right thing.
The appropriations bill was ultimately passed out of JFAC without the summer lunch program funding. Also Thursday was the introduction of House Bill 753 on immigration. The bill makes it a misdemeanor upon a first conviction and a felony for subsequent offenses for an undocumented immigrant to enter or attempt to enter Idaho from a foreign nation anywhere other than the lawful port of entry. House Bill 753 passed out of committee yesterday and was already on the House floor today.
There's a population, a fairly significant population that does that work. And where we need to land with that is some kind of a work visa system.
As a farmer, I do not appreciate the implication that we are hiring illegal labor.
House Bill 753 passed the House and is now headed to a Senate committee. We'll keep an eye on it. But for now, that's a legislative wrap. Let's go back to Boise City Hall, circa fall of 2003. There was an interim mayor because the previous mayor had resigned amid a scandal of misusing public funds and abusing public trust, and he would eventually be sentenced to 180 days in jail. Chief of Police was given a vote of no confidence from the police union for his role in the scandal, so the incoming mayor, Dave Beater, and newly elected members of City Council like Alan Shealy had some cleanup to do to reestablish some community trust. And little did they know that trust would be tested again, almost as soon as they were sworn into office in January 2004. It's when the religious right would clash with the separation of church and state, and the city of Boise stuck in the middle. The book on Boise's 10 Commandments monument could close a significant chapter on March 29th, 20 years ago today. But the story started long before that.
It was a Saturday in early June, 1965, when the Boise chapter of Idaho's Fraternal Order of Eagles presented the city with a monolith of the 10 Commandments. The ceremony at Julia Davis Park would be followed by a parade, a banquet, and a dance. But it would also be followed by nearly 40 years of an inconspicuous existence. Holy words hiding in plain sight. That is until late 2003, when Fred Phelps, pastor of the Kansas-based Westboro Baptist Church, continued his crusade of contempt. He and his followers would protest the existence of gay people, showing up at their funerals, condemning them to hell.
We're here to warn people. We're here to preach to them and tell them this message that no one else is telling anybody.
Except Phelps was hoping for something more permanent than preaching. So when he got wind of what was standing in a park in Boise, he wanted to do here what he was trying to do in places like Wyoming, Tennessee, and North Carolina. If a city had a sectarian statue on public property, he wanted to be able to put up an anti-gay monument of his own in that town to celebrate the death of Matthew Shepard, the Wyoming college student killed for being a homosexual.
Under the First Amendment, he has the right to do that, and he is simply exercising his right to free speech.
In December of 2003, Phelps tried, but was denied by Boise Parks and Recreation. Then, to avoid a public and possibly costly lawsuit by Phelps, in January of 2004, Boise City Council voted to move the monument out of Julia Davis Park, a motion made by Councilmember Alan Sheely.
And I think that this could have been a very costly distraction to the city, and that's why we made the motion that we did.
That sparked Boise resident Brandy Swindell.
We are still challenging City Council and Mayor Beater to consider an open hearing.
And the newly created Keep the Commandments Coalition to file a federal lawsuit the next day, asking for a restraining order.
Asking that out of respect to the people of Boise that they not remove the Ten Commandments monument in Julia Davis Park. And if they move it, that is a slap in the face to the people of Boise.
What we're saying is that the removal of the monument is the discrimination of Judeo-Christian beliefs in favor of a non-theistic religious belief.
That order was denied, and the daily prayer rallies continued at the monument.
But if we have to be here 24 hours a day, I guess that's what we're going to have to do then.
Lord, we pray.
We are here fighting for the acknowledgement of God in the public square.
As winter became spring, with all legal means exhausted, the pinnacle moment for the monument came on March 29th. 13 peaceful protesters were paraded away and charged with resisting and obstructing officers.
It's unbelievably tragic. It is so tragic that this monument was removed.
Within minutes, the monument would make its way up Capitol Boulevard to be replanted at its new home in front of St. Michael's Cathedral on State Street.
St. Michael's is one of the oldest churches in the state, an ideal setting for a monument that holds such tremendous significance for so many people.
We think it was a very nice gesture of St. Michael's to offer to take the monument, but the principle is the Ten Commandments monument should stay in its home, which is Julia Davis Park.
20 years later,
looking back all these years later, would you do it again?
Brandy still believes the same thing.
I would do it again because I think religious freedom is something worth fighting for. I am glad that it is still downtown, that it's behind the Capitol building on State Street at the Episcopal Church there. I wish it was still in its original home in Julia Davis Park, but I would do it again because I've met friends that I still have to this day because of Keep the Commandments Coalition. I mean, I was just a citizen in my hometown seeing this important monument being removed, and I knew that I was one of many.
Another one of those many.
Well, it was kind of an interesting thing. There had been no issue.
Was Dennis Mansfield, who says he was the first to bring the attention to Boise's Ten Commandments monument.
Wait a minute. There's a statue of the Ten Commandments in Julia Davis Park. What have you stirred up?
Dennis said he stepped away when it became clear this innocuous monolith in the park was becoming too political.
And then there was no dialogue. There was just two monologues.
But being there at the beginning meant Dennis wanted to be there at the end.
About 2 or 3 days before they were tearing it out, that they asked me, since I had started this, to come and be there, and if I felt so led. And so I decided that I would do that. I suppose it was a real turning point for me, because here I was, sort of a reluctant, civil disobedient person. I knew it was wrong that they would be ripping it out, but I didn't know if it would be right for me to sit there and be arrested, but I was. And I realized that was the right thing to do at that time.
We've heard these folks today.
As for former council member Alan Sheely, he still feels the city did the right thing too.
This is ridiculous. I'm not going to waste a shekel of taxpayer money defending the city against this lawsuit. And so that was the primary motivation for me making the motion to move the monument. It had nothing to do with the First Amendment, the Establishment Clause, nothing like that. It was purely to avoid a lengthy and costly lawsuit. And I don't regret the decision, but I regret not having a public hearing first.
Would that have changed your opinion had you had a public hearing?
I don't think so. But I think it would have been a different venue had the council, the full council, had an opportunity to hear what people said about the issue. That's the essence of public service, is to hear people's opinions and then make what you feel is the best and rational decision.
Did you think it was going to blow up like it did?
No. No. I had no clue that it would have aroused the wrath of so many people. But at the end of the day, I think it's in a better place. And I think the city's in a better place for having avoided that contentious, drawn-out legal battle.
So at that time, it was also made known that the cities of Nampa and Caldwell, they also had 10 Commandment monuments on public property, but they didn't consider moving them. The movement of the monument was not the end of the story, though. The Keep the Commandments Coalition turned in more than 18,000 signatures to get an initiative on the ballot for voters to decide if they wanted the monument, I say, back to Julia Davis Park. And the city actually denied that petition, saying it was an administrative decision, not a voter one. But the state Supreme Court ruled in the coalition's favor, and the initiative was on the ballot in 2006. Only to have 52% vote to keep it at the cathedral. Randy Swindell says that if there was one good thing that did come out of it, it was that voter initiatives were validated by the Idaho Supreme Court.
This week has been both soggy and snowy at times, and so as we go into the weekend, those showers will continue to taper off and become a little bit more scarce, even though they're still staying in the mix for a couple places. It's really as we get closer to Sunday that we start to see some more wet conditions move in ahead of those scattered showers. And so as we look at Easter Sunday, there's a couple things to consider. Very cold start for a couple areas, specifically the mountains with the lows in the 20s. The clouds and breezy conditions and even gusts up to 40 miles an hour will be sticking around. The stronger winds will be in the western Treasure Valley areas, but we've also got some shower chances moving back into the forecast. So pay attention to some of those southern zones. You can see more moisture working its way in. So things turning a little bit on the wet and even snowy side in Magic Valley spots as we look to Easter Sunday. Otherwise, though, mainly dry throughout your 7-day forecast.
All right, let's get to some of your comments to finish up the week here. This person says, so I guess this bill, 545, got sent to the governor for signature. Hopefully he will not sign it. All it does is hurt people trying to rent a place and survive. That from Bob on a Friday. Thank you, Bob. This person says, so does the library bill allow anyone to say where a book I want to read can be in the library without me having an opportunity to provide my opinion? We will have to see how this final, I guess, bill and law would play out. It is still in the legislature, so as soon as we get the final bill and it actually becomes a law, we will get to that. This person says, why a statement of support for anti-racism is debatable confounds me. Just say no to hate. This person says, the word that Mr. Bedke should use is shameful. There should have been no discussion. All right, well, hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.